We as Indigenous people have thousands of years of justice, our own forms of justice behind us, social justice, and it goes back to a time when we believed that you didn't write someone off because they made a mistake.
The system now is so broken, and if somebody's not advocating for those people, when these guys get out, they've got nowhere to go. And when you look at justice, I mean, there's so many different phases of justice, and the advocacy is the biggest component.
And the prison system is an extension of all of the assimilation programs, such as the residential school systems, the 60 scoops. Now we're seeing the highest rates of child incarceration, and the work that is done in this building is powerful and vital to the conversations and the advocacy work that is going on in the social justice community across Indian country. And even though they're not here with us right now, I would like to thank all of the community members who are doing incredible work, not only in restorative justice, but reclaiming our Indigenous knowledge and propelling the future for social justice. Chief Butch.
Let's go.
My name is Chris Nargang. I'm an archaeologist and artist. My grandmother was a residential school survivor who hid her true identity from our family. I am on this journey to find my truth, reconcile the past, and continue the legacy that was stolen from her.
I'm Sarain Fox. I'm Anishinaabe from Batchewana First Nation, and I belong to the Three Fires Medewan Medicine Society. The movement of Indigenous knowledge revitalization is thriving across Turtle Island, and I want to introduce Kris and all of you to the revolutionary work being done by those who have dedicated their lives to shifting colonial narratives by harnessing Indigenous knowledge. We are the future our ancestors dreamed of. Our prophecies tell us that the time is now to reclaim, rematriate, and revitalize the knowledge intended for us. This is future history. So we're in downtown Toronto,
Right.
Kensington Market. And we're going to meet a really, really incredible lawyer.
She was also chief in her community for 2 years, very well respected in the legal profession, very well respected in her community. And I know for me, it's going to be so eye-opening to think about how she's approaching the justice system.
Justice is not just law and title and policy. Justice is food sovereignty, access to cultural practice. As Indigenous people, we need to access all avenues of justice to bring us back to ourselves as healthy beings and healthy people who are able to have the kind of vibrant futures that we want for ourselves.
My name is Sara Mainville. I'm a lawyer working out of this law office in Toronto, Oath Clear Township. The foundation of law is basically, in Anishinaabe culture, it's all about trying to live this life in a good way, with all those positive things to build solidarity within a community, so the community feels that it's important for them to keep community peace, to keep balance, all of those things. The problem with justice systems is this alien form in Canadian law it's pretty artificial, right? It starts with this idea that there's a king that can make command rule and everybody will listen to it. Societies don't necessarily work that way. And that's why you need jails and prisons, because that type of faux law it doesn't work for everybody. You don't live it and you don't feel it, and it's not part of your spirituality. It's bound to fail. It's bound to do damage. We can do what we can within that system, but I actually think that we're at the point now where we're going to talk about Indigenous justice systems, how connecting youth to the land will deal with some early indicators of criminality. There's a lot of discussion about us defining our own institutions with the support of the state, with the support of Canada. So you can look at how consent was really important to the early relationships. I mean, that was fundamental. It goes back all the way to the two-row wampum. This idea of reciprocity is really the ideal. We'll teach you, you'll teach us. I mean, that's really why two societies would come together and coexist. And I think that's the harsh reality for Canada, is that they need to give us the right and the decision to decide, do we want to coexist or do we want independence? And that's going to be a hard discussion. And Canada is not ready for that yet.
So here we are again in Toronto.
So we're going to meet Joel White Duck Ringette, and he is the owner at Nishdish Marketeria. And Nishdish is so much more than just a market or a place for Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people to access food. In particular, what Nishdish is trying to do is really focus on building community and returning our sacred foods, returning our Indigenous knowledge. It's also a reaction to Joel's experience working in the justice system.
Well, and it started from the justice system with work he was doing in the courts.
The Gladue Court, yeah.
Gladue Court. So, I mean, it'd be interesting to know what actually kicked that off and made him actually take that move to bring this forward to start this community. So brick by brick, we'll see how he built it.
Bonjour, Anin.
Hey
how
guys.
you doing?
Good. How are you?
How are you?
How you doing?
I'm Chris.
Good.
Nice
Chris,
to meet you,
Joel. Nice to meet you.
Good
Thanks
to
for
see you. I'll
having
still
us.
shake your hand.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Do you want some sweetgrass tea?
Please,
love
sure.
some, yeah.
Love some.
It's chilled sweetgrass tea,
Okay.
and as you know, it's one of our traditional medicines. We get it from 6 nations.
So you've taken that and created all those medicines, and then you actually put them in all of your foods as you go?
We use a lot of them in the food for sure. We have the Saskatoon berry, which of course is a medicine, and it's used in a lot of the food today. We make preserves out of it. We make a coulis out of it. I didn't really understand how important that food was till I came to the city in 1988, because we couldn't find any of that food here.
So there was nothing here then at all.
So it wasn't until 2005 that I started the catering business, and that's the extent of time before I even found a community here. Once I arrived here and I eventually started working in the Aboriginal justice community, it was the medicine teacher I had who said, "You have this other gift." He explained a lot of things to me that were really important but really hard for me to hear, and one of them was that this justice system I would never find justice in, that it wasn't our system, and the justice that I was specifically seeking would never be found there. And I stayed for many years trying to find that, thinking about how do we create community. Because when you look at our communities across the board, you start realizing there are all these major health epidemics and health issues. And we talk to our grandmothers and our aunties and the people who remember what kind of diet we were supposed to eat. Every single bit of this food has a teaching with it, and that's part of the knowledge we need with the food.
I looked at justice and I looked at food. I was like, where's the balance? I mean, how can that possibly be? But so you've taken it further. Now you're starting a community. And how's it been received for you?
We didn't advertise it at all, and we still got 800 people here. The support showed the need for us to have community and to have access to our food. So it was really super overwhelming and amazing.
Speaking of food, I'm looking at the menu. What would you recommend we give a go?
How often have you had roasted duck? This is a sandwich that we're making with maple and Saskatoon berry. We also have a beautiful butternut squash sweet potato leek soup. We have Indigenous picked leeks, hand-picked leeks from both Soleil First Nations, so that's really exciting.
Well, how about we just let them surprise us?
Yeah.
The Nishdish team is going to plate you up
Okay.
some really good fixings.
Let's
Hey,
just-
Nishdish team.
All right.
The things that our community faces compared to any other community, that there are no words. An Aboriginal man sitting on a bench downtown doing nothing but sitting on a bench, and I watch the police come up on their bikes and ticket him for vagrancy. If we want to have a district, if we want our people to come to all these urban centers, which we know they do, and we don't want them to go into custody, we have to build communities. We can have all kinds of advocates that are non-Aboriginal, but the leadership of that healing has to be in our hands, and the leadership of justice systems today is not in our hands. The same with food access, food sovereignty. We have to put it in our hands, and that's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to gain access to it. Then we'll find ways to grow. We're going to start a community where we can grow the food that I'm talking about, so we have access to it. And I really feel it has to be in our hands. I've always said Aboriginal healing in Aboriginal people's hands. What is a dream without having the opportunity to share it with others? Through the love in our community, which there's so much of, so much resilience, so much love from our people passed down through the food. I'd like to toast to celebrating community, the strength of community, all of us together as one, supporting one another, and to the next Aboriginal district, which we will move nationwide. Thank you. Cheers. Cheers. Thank you for being here.
Awesome.
Malasawyunga, igluriachung miltak sayawyunga, inugama, man nawyok Ottawa me ilingniaktitiyunga nunavut. Hi, my name is Melissa. I'm originally from Chesterfield Inlet in Nunavut. I'm living here now in Ottawa and I'm an instructor with Nunavut.
Jamie Takiruinga, Okroktok Mutarunga, Nunavut Mutarunga. Hi, my name is Jamie Takiro. I'm from Joe Haven, Nunavut.
The calls to action, all these recommendations on how Canada should move forward is so important, and it underscores healing and moving forward.
What I believe in is I believe in fighting for Inuit rights, to make sure that Inuit all across Canada are seen as equal Canadians.
We all have a role in reconciliation, all sectors in Canadian society, whether you are a cafe, within government and policy, everyone has a potential great role in reconciliation, and we're seeing it already. Even the National Arts Centre, they announced that they're going to build into their plays more Indigenous content, which is beautiful and it's amazing, and that is another example of reconciliation.
It's going to be a long road ahead, but I'm sure that the motivation that I've had, I believe that I can push forward and help become a future leader of Nunavut.
Everyone can participate in it. It doesn't matter what nationality you are. If we all participate, Canada as a whole is really going to do so much better.
So Kris, I think you know Jim from your work in the prisons?
Yeah, Jim Johnson is an elder at Collins Bay Maximum Security Penitentiary. Yeah, I've known Jim for quite a few years. He lives in my community. He's actually on council with me. And he, works with the guys. He gives them sweats and, offers them traditional teachings, and tries to set them on a path of respect and give them something to hold on to while they're in here, and, gives them a little bit of time out. But at the same time, he tries to set them on a path when they leave.
My personal opinion is that as Indigenous people, we should have the right to access our traditions and to reclaim who we are as Indigenous people, no matter what your situation in life is.
If you're Catholic or angry, whatever you are, you have the right to all those ceremonies or whatever the practices they have. It's a lot harder for Indigenous people to have that in the system because, it becomes a smudging, and people don't realize that our culture is 24/7. It's not like we just go to church on Sundays. It's a spiritual movement, and that has to be all day, every day, to try and get these guys back on the right path. And I think guys like Jim are the ones that teach them that way. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them don't know when they come in, like me on my journey, not knowing, who I am and what I am, and then if I was to end up in here, I'd have to start from there, and a guy like him is so valuable to help those people like me that are floundering.
I know the importance of traditions. I know the power and potency of ceremony, and I know what it means to people when they get to learn who they are. We have to be able to walk that red road, and in order to do that, we have to know the teachings of the red road. We are in the highest number of incarcerations belong to Indigenous people, and I think that we need to start looking at that as a society. This is not by accident, and I think many people would actually link not only the apprehension of children as a continuation of residential school, but our incarceration rates as well.
Abojo, Hanin, Wache, Sego, Dante, Queque, Kagole, Kamasava, Shishabakados is Nakas, Makatodin, Nigze, Dodin. Nido question, Jamanado, the Kamanika, Kajigan, the Shinabe, Kadoyan. My spirit name is Shankwahanaji, which is standing spotted horse. I'm an Anishinaabe, but a lot of my teachings come from Assiniboine people.
What does the work that Jim does mean to you, or how does it affect your life here?
It feels like the walls come down when we're out here. It really doesn't feel like we obviously know we're in an institution, but for this little bit we come out here, we feel somewhat free.
We do look forward to coming to the grounds and having a sweat but once a month, and that's really the only thing that we do look forward to tell the truth.
Their institution really dictates on how much they allow Jim to do for us.
What are the main things that you need to have happen here so Jim can do his job?
They'll only allow him to move so many people. He has to have somebody with him. We have a really hard time coming out to the grounds because we don't have the staff here to accommodate all the men that need to come out.
And most of Native guys, most of my guys are told at intake, don't come and see me for 4 or 5 years because you're not getting nothing anyway. You know, what is the incentive to change?
A lot of my brothers here, you know, we're not bad people. We've done bad things in our life, but if we had that help, I think we need more people like Jim to come in these institutions to help us. And so when we do come home, we have these skills to make it out there.
So Jim, can you tell me how you found your way to the penitentiary and the work you do here?
Back in the day when I was younger, I done time.
Are they allowed to have ceremony, Jim? Like, are they allowed to smudge or certain things like that? Like
yes, they do. We
cells?
have a smudge kit that we give them. I give them sweat lodge here. I do sweat lodge once a month. I do pipe with them.
What is the importance of having that community connection?
In my community in Hiawatha, where my house is, I have a sweat lodge over there, and I still have men coming to me from 15, 20 years. They still come back in children. I have bought a house and, you know, things like that.
So when you were here on the other side of those bars, what were the services available to you?
There was nobody doing, you know, spiritual services for us. You know, nobody come in to do pipe, nobody come in to help us to get back into the community. There was none of that. Our justice system is not made up for us. The new residential school is prison. So this is basically the common area. Yeah. Our guys, we try to get them traditional food when we can. You know, we bring in, you know, moose, deer.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. The Inuit guys that are in the institutions, they have country food. They have all kinds of different
You ever
food.
get frozen muktak?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about this journey of you being behind bars and finding your way to the other side now?
I grew up in an alcoholic family. My father was a major alcoholic, very violent. When he came back from the war, he had PTSD, and he didn't know what that was, and nobody knew what that was at that time. When I was 12, 11, I guess my father kicked me out of the house. I lived under a bridge for 2 years, 3 years. I started to rob people, and then I started to go to prison. After I grew up, I started going to my elders. I never went to AA and never went to NA. I found the ways of the pipe and the ways of who I was as an Anishinaabe. Coming through the system, I wanted to give back. I worked for an organization called Lifeline, and that's long-term offenders coming back inside, working with men doing life. I've seen men who grew up here inside, but through this way, through sweat lodge, through pipe, through ceremonies, they change. It's really hard to see the future. All I see is the hurt and the pain of these people. That we as a people, we as Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Mishkegawak need to take those men and show them that way, you know, that haven't seen their direction in life. They have to take them aside and say, this is who you were in the beginning. These guys need a break and a chance at life. These men want to make a change, want to see a different way of life. You know, they want to see freedom.
And we're celebrating. We're celebrating.
We decided to be in Collins Bay to do an offering of intention for the men of this institution and all of our men in the institutions.
Bojo Wabananongo Quayandas Nikos Organization do Dam Anishinaabe Quayandal Batwana and Donjaban Simadalio. I want to say Chimigwech to Kichimanado for allowing us to be here today, but I would like to speak to all of our people who are finding themselves fallen off of the road that we know as Anishinaabe people is the road we need to be on. And I would like to dedicate all of this work to all of the young people who are currently struggling and all of the elders who may have by now spent a lifetime incarcerated. And I don't have any sema because we weren't allowed to bring any in. Just want to place my hand here on the sacrifice.
I know mine, for one, is one that needs revitalization, and maybe we can stop a lot of this before we get to here. So Chimigwich for the lessons we've learned on this trip, and I really hope that we can learn the lessons now.
Chimigwich Nikon, Nikon, Nikon,